Hey guys, welcome back. Today's video I will be analyzing BTS's album B. I was going to do an analytical series starting with their first album, but I read that some people didn't really like their B album or it wasn't up to par with their previous ones, and I decided to talk about it first. Now, let's get to the video. B. BTS's latest album, which was released on November 20th of 2020, and it's a response to the ongoing circumstances of COVID-19 and its results. The album shows the group members responding and reacting to the COVID news and the way they interact with each other during the pandemic. BTS described B as a letter of hope, as it speaks of the themes of comfort, loneliness, anxiety, depression, frustration, restlessness, sadness, hope, connection, and joy. In an interview for the Rolling Stone India, Jimin said the following: "The pandemic unexpectedly put a lot of our original plans to a halt. However, it provided us an opportunity to step back and focus on ourselves as well as our music. We reflected the emotions that we felt during this unprecedented period into this album. We were also able to take a step further by taking roles in overall production such as concept development, composition, and visual design. It was a response to how the pandemic halted all their plans to have another world tour." On April 17th of 2020, RM confirmed that the band was working on a new album during a live concert broadcast on YouTube. He hinted that they would be sharing the preparation process for the forthcoming album through subsequent self-documented videos as part of their Stay Connected and Carry On initiative to interact with the fans during the lockdown. On April 24th, Suga teased the album in another broadcast. "Before we started, we decided who was in charge of what, who would oversee everything, who would oversee the visuals, who would oversee the music. We split that up. We discussed it amongst ourselves and made the decision." During a YouTube livestream on May 1st, Jimin revealed that he was assigned as the music project manager and admitted that the forthcoming album would be written and produced by the members. Talking about his role, Jimin explained, "I don't know yet how exactly I will proceed, but I am working hard in order to be of help. What I can do now is ask the members how they want to work, what story they want to tell, how many songs they want to do, what style of song, what the composition will be, which member will be suitable for what, and communicate this to the label." On May 7, V, J-Hope, and RM revealed that V had been assigned the role of visual project manager whilst discussing the album concept, jacket photos, and styling during the broadcast. Speaking about the album in an interview with Teen Vogue, BTS stated, "An increase of direct participation in the album-making process allowed us to explore more aspects of our music and creativity. Because all the members are involved in the album somehow, there are more last-minute changes being made than before, which leads to more uncertainties surrounding the finalization of the release date." According to a press release, the album imparts a message of healing to the world by declaring, "Even in the face of this new normality, our life goes on," and reflects the thoughts, emotions, and deepest ruminations of BTS while working on the album. This new project offers an even richer musical spectrum experience, as well as the most BTS-ish music yet. BTS described the album as a letter of hope during the quarantine era. The album expands on a wide range of emotions, exploring themes of comfort, loneliness, anxiety, depression, burnout, fear, frustration, restlessness, sadness, hope, connection, resolve, and joy. NME observed that B cycles through the various ever-changing moods of the pandemic has made a constant in our lives. Rolling Stone noted that the record explores the different highs and lows BTS is feeling throughout this strange, difficult time. The Atlantic summarized B as a kind of musical document of the members' thoughts and feelings about losing a year to the pandemic. On the album's direction, Jin states the following: "This album is like a page in our diary of the times we are currently living in." The album title, B, represents being and captures the honest thoughts and emotions we are feeling at the moment. We've included a lot of chill and laid-back songs that anyone can enjoy, so we hope many people can find comfort through this album. I think this album will give us an opportunity to grow further as artists who can represent the current image through music. The album opens with the ruminative Life Goes On, a mid-tempo alternative hip-hop and synth-pop song underlaid with an acoustic guitar. It's lyrics deal with the COVID-19 pandemic and speaks of being hopeful for better times. RM said that the song has a simple message but a profound truth.
Like an echo in the forest, I'm
The song begins with Jungkook and Jimin singing about the start of the pandemic, the way it hit all of planet Earth without any preamble or warning. They sing about how spring didn't care that we were all locked up and that time is going by fast and slow and trapping us in an even more vicious cycle of loneliness. Jump into RM's part where it feels like it's raining and that it won't stop, symbolizing the despair and agony of being at a standstill, unable to live your life the way you always did because something out of your control is stopping you from it. And the fact that he, alongside every one of us, are in a race with time and that we feel our despair and helplessness to our bone. And it tires us, it exhausts us, and thinking that we'll be able to defeat it only to be brought down to our knees makes us see how human and insignificant we really are. It makes us reminisce in the older, easy and dust-filled memories of simpler times, longing for the soft breeze of spring air. The pre-chorus has V and Jungkook singing about how they wonder if there's any end in sight to this prison. Are we ever going to wake up from this nightmare? They state how their feet are stuck on the ground, that they encourage each other to take each other's hands and run to the future, a future that is better than the bleak present. In the chorus, both Jimin and Jungkook sing about how the despair and helplessness is as if an echo in a wide forest, disappearing into the void, and that the days go around, interchangeable, and that as if nothing happened, life will go on, and that the bad days will fly by, the arrows being shot in the vast sky. Life just goes on. In Suga's part, he speaks of how people say that the world has changed, how everything isn't as it used to be, but he states that nothing has changed between you and me. The you can be interpreted as the rest of the members or as us, ARMY, that no matter what, nothing is going to change between us and that we'll always be there for one another. Then we have J-Hope and Jungkook's part where they speak of how we need to have hope, that we need to understand that no matter how dark and bleak the world seems at the moment, daylight will always shine through, and that a new day is always in the horizon, that we shouldn't give up hope or give in to our despair. Then we have the pre-chorus and chorus repeated, and then the outro ends with V and Jimin serenading their remembrance of an easier and less bleak time, giving a promise to never forget to live on, and that no matter what, life goes on, always will. The intro begins with Jimin and V being trapped, feeling the depression and blues of their helplessness, how they long to escape their confinement, to fly far away from all of the pain and into the small sanctuary of their room. The first verse has Jimin and V singing about how every day is suffocating and how it's driving them crazy and feeling as if the days are all blurred into one. They want to turn back time. They want to go back to where the whole world was, just a normal one, unaffected by the pandemic. How they want to go out somewhere, but thanks to the pandemic, there's no chance in hell of that happening. So they decide to have their room turned into their own world, since it's the only thing they're in control of. Then Jimin sings the chorus where he acts as if his small room is the whole world. He's able to go wherever he wants. He can jump and fly and zoom around the room, feeling like a bird flying in the sky without any boundaries, and it helps him get out of his depressed mood and makes him feel better. In verse 2, V and Jimin sing about how they see their room so unfamiliar, as if they're seeing it for the first time, and it gives the idea that before all of this happened, before the pandemic hit, they took their room, their end-of-the-day sanctuary, for granted, and that now they were confined in it against their will. They saw how important their own personal space was, how the tiny little world they once took for granted has become their everything because of what's been happening. After the chorus, Suga and J-Hope sing of how they feel about their room, that small world that's all theirs, that space that contains their hopes and dreams, the way that their bed is the safest space. Whether it's happiness or sadness or any other feeling, it doesn't matter because this little space, this little place accepts it all. This small space is filled with feelings, and everything in their room is like their friend, reading them, the toys, the TV, everything embracing them. The intro begins with V and Jungkook singing about how, amidst all the chaos taking place because of the pandemic, they've lost their guardian angel, how they long for someone to come and save them from their depression and blueness, how the only thing they feel and experience are the depressed sighs of a tiring day, the way that the only colors they have are blue and gray, that despite looking happily into the mirror, their eyes are filled with tears and sadness, and that the colors hiding behind their fake smiles are once again blue and gray. In the first verse, Suga speaks of his depression and how it has been like a blue question mark over his head since his childhood, a dark cloud over his psyche, giving him questions more than answers. The way he works hard and lives harder whenever he can, but when the depression hits, it swallows him whole, and he's unsure if it's uneasiness or melancholy. It's a storm brewing in his mind, and he's unable to settle it. He thinks that eventually we maybe are animals of regret, and this part is a reference of his verse in his People track from his album D2. Or maybe he was given birth by his loneliness. He was just unsure, but he always hopes for the blue cloud over his head not to consume him whole, otherwise he would perish. He is determined to find the way out. Next, the chorus. Jin, Jungkook, Jimin, and V sing about wanting to be happy again, about being cold and wanting someone to melt the coldness inside of them, how everything around them resembles a colorless echo, how they keep singing to themselves and wanting someone to save them from their loneliness, that they just want to be happy, and how they wonder if this was too much to ask for. In the post-chorus, they sing about how winter came and crushed us all, how the pandemic added to the isolation of the freezing cold. Even after it came and went, they still feel the unwavering cold bite and not wanting to be left alone as their loneliness hurts them too much to bear. In the second verse, RM and J-Hope sing about how, because of the pandemic, the same streets that they walked in 1,000 times, now they feel so unfamiliar to them, and they wonder if they've become too used to the streets or if it's all falling apart. They stand, eyes unfocused, all alone, and then it rains, and now they're in their element. The rain makes them feel good, feel hopeful. They dance on top of the city, hoping for foggy days to come, to always be together on wet, rainy days. And then they raise a toast to the dust surrounding them from days and months in quarantine. The intro speaks of how whenever the days are similar in feel, the boys always feel the happiness whenever they meet each other and whenever they meet armies. Of however different the days are, the most special person to them is each other and armies. In verse 1, Suga asks if things are right, if his brothers and army were okay and not hurt anywhere, how these days are intertwined and basically the same, how everything is up in the air and not knowing whether things will work out or not, and how that he's writing this song for us to make us feel better. In verse 2, J-Hope and Jungkook sing about wanting to go away, traveling to the Blue Sea, which was their sanctuary, how it always helped them lay down their worries, even if it were for just a moment, how they just wanted to have fun in their small island in their little blue sea, where they made all their sweet and stress-free memories. In verse 3, V and Jungkook sing of how despite existing distance, their hearts and our hearts will always be the same. Even if we're separated, we will always be together. In verse 4, RM is singing about how, like wild grass, mornings always rise, how it's like a two-way mirror where he's able to check up on us, how his bruise-filled knees are so heavy as he walks the empty streets, thinking of the distance between us. We could still have his shoulders to lay our heads on. Finally, in verse 5, Jimin, Jin, and V sing time goes too fast 1 minute only to go too slow the next. How they want time to be in the middle, not too fast, not too slow. How they want enough time to have fun and simply to be alive. In verse 1, V sings about how empty he feels, how his days were once filled with work and dancing and just so full of planning, how as much as he's now having an endless rest because of the pandemic, and as this rest is supposed to feel good after years and years of continuous hard work, he feels a sort of uneasy happiness. His day is now empty, and he can spend 24 hours sleeping if he wanted to. How this free time made him realize how much he appreciated and loved his job. How he feels like a resting dog who once kept biting himself whenever he tried to rest in the past years. He's confused and sad, angry even. In the pre-chorus, V, Jungkook, Jin, and Jimin sing that due to their emptiness and the free time they have, they might feel sick. How they hate how their emptiness is giving them too many thoughts, and we all know that too many thoughts in the mind, no way to be productive, is destructive. How despite being physically grown men, at heart, they still feel like children, and how still after all these years of hard work and being adults, they still stumble their way through life. In the chorus, Jimin and Jungkook sing about how they try to comfort themselves every day, that everyone is going through the same things, the same feelings of depression and emptiness. We're just in the same boat. Then we have RM in verse 2 doing an amazing wordplay saying he feels his heart is in need of a vacation and how work can just be left as work, that he's ill and working too. His play on the words ill and work, since il means work in Korean, so it gives a major connection between overworking and being ill. He also states that he didn't like himself when he would rest from working, but he would also wonder how much more does he need to earn to be happy. He makes another wordplay with the word bottle and disease, since both words mean byung, that he's confused, not knowing whether it was a glass bottle breaking on his head or it's a disease taking over his brain. Is he the only one diseased, or is it the whole world? He's not sure. His vision is blurry, and despite taking off his dark glasses, hoping to see the world in a better view, it's still the same. It's still blurry, and it's exhausting. Then we have Suga in verse 3, where he speaks of how the pandemic showed the true colors of many people around the world, and how it manifested the true ugliness of human nature, how we all have diseases of our own, and how there are more than 400 diseases of the mind alone, how no matter who we are, whether we're rich, poor, happy, sad, content, or not, these diseases affect us all. Then he wonders whether he was the one who's diseased, or if it's the rest of the world, if it's the way we're watching each other and interpreting our actions, or is it really a worldwide spread disease, and how it's a lot easier for a person to change than trying to change someone else, because you know your shortcomings and your worst attributes, and you try to be a better person. Then in the bridge, we have Jungkook, Jimin, Jin, and V state how sick and tired they are, but despite it all, they don't want it to hinder them, because no matter what, life goes on. How no matter how hard it is, they would walk through fire because life is worth living. How when night falls and they close their eyes, they'll always believe in the me that knew them. How morning always comes and the night is never forever. How they get stronger with each rising sun, and how we will never fade away. In verse 1, we have Jungkook and Jin wondering whether they saw us or each other in a dream, how they feel like magicians casting a spell on us to maybe make us feel better. They feel that no matter what, that wherever, their fast-beating heart will always feel like we're always together. In verse 2, RM and Jungkook sing about how the repetition of days seems like a blessing in disguise, how despite the pandemic making them feel as if they no longer know their own inner selves, despite how the future seems to be unchanging and set in its form of isolation, they know that they always stay, that we always stay by their side, always holding their hands and having their backs. In the chorus, RM, Jin, and Jungkook sing about how they always know that we'll stay, that even though the clouds pass by, that days come and go, we'll always stay. In the post-chorus, Jin and Jungkook sing of how we will always stay by their side for every single one of us who's a part of a splendid day and night. In verse 3, RM sings about how wherever we are, he's always thinking of us, how the distance isn't important since we connect to 7G, which I believe is a wordplay regarding smartphones, 3G and 4G connecting systems, and that BTS are our 7G connecting system. Then he states that what we're going through at the moment of isolation, fear, and confusion isn't the end of the world, that as bleak looking as the present is, it still shines like a pearl. And despite going through many waves of crisis, we will always pull through. In the outro, Jin sings of how he asks to hold our hand on a chilly, windy night, how he feels our warm breath, how he closes his eyes, and the sensation makes him realize that we indeed are together. That was one hell of a long video to make. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Please don't forget to like and subscribe and click the notification bell to be notified of my new uploads, because I will be making constant K-pop commentary videos. And yeah, I will see you on the next one. Bye!